Hey everyone, I'm really glad that you're joining us once again for our next podcast or PAW-CAST, whichever you are learning to call it. I'm Kathleen Ennis-Durstine. I manage chaplaincy services at Children's National Medical Center, and I am so delighted to be here tonight with Yasser Heshmat. Yasser was one of the first individuals who really greeted me when I came to work at Children's. One of the first people I had a serious religious conversation with, and it's just been a growing and wonderful relationship since then. He has helped me understand about Islam over the years, and tonight that's what we're going to ask him to do so that we can all become more understanding, more respectful, be able to treat one another well during the season of Ramadan, which is coming up. Yasser, thank you and welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself to our folk and tell them a little bit about what you do here at Children's and how you came here?
My name is Yasser Heshmat. I was born in Cairo, Egypt. Since young age, I had a vision that I may come and live in US, my home, and here we are. And never planned that I would be part of Children's, but God made it happen. You know, it's an honor to be in this place, helping our kids, seeing them growing up and having their own family. I work in the cardiology outpatient clinic in a position where we monitor patient heart rhythm, and we apply a lot of different ambulatory devices, between application and reading them.
Thank you so much. Could you tell us a little bit about what Ramadan actually is? What is its history? What is its meaning and purpose in today's Muslim life?
Ramadan, during Ramadan is a month that Muslims are trained to fast. And we follow the lunar calendar, so everything according to the moon. So the night time is important to observe. Of course, we have scholars and Islamic centers who help us in knowing the start and the end of the month. For each religion, there is a practice of fasting, comes for the practice of a follower of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Fasting Ramadan is essential, in part of our practice. It has been prescribed on the second year of the Hijri calendar, as being mentioned intensively in the Quran, especially on the second chapter of the Quran. And all of us across the globe, we are eager and waiting for this month to approach and start our fasting. Fasting by itself is physical and spiritual parts, and even scholars may explain or shed more about the in-depth of fasting. Fasting is establish connection with God, obeying God, knowing that what has been prescribed for us is actually beneficial, despite that maybe we perceive it as a difficult task. And of course, once you are trained to fast the month, it will be kind of like an easy process. This is the physical part of fasting. In the spiritual part is to learn how to control yourself, establishing oneself that, yes, I am strong, physically capable of managing my manners and my behavior, and from there, we are to renew this kind of practice every year. So kind of like we get a boost year by year. In between, once Ramadan is over, we are recommended also to fast some additional days during the year. Like for example, the 10th month of the lunar calendar, month of Shawwal, we are to fast an additional 6 days. During the day of pilgrimage, the 9th days of Dhul Hijjah, the 12th month is also, it is recommended to fast that day. Also it's recommended to fast whenever you can, every Monday and Thursday of the week. And also for the lunar months to fast the 13th, 14th, and 15th day of the month as well.
Wow.
And now maybe for us, we know that the newer trend in medicine is recommendation of what's called intermittent fasting. And basically that's how can we even cleanse ourselves and our body from toxins that we cannot get rid of, except through fasting.
Wow. Are there any exceptions to fasting for the month, for any particular days, or?
When the months before the months start, and especially for the first day of the month, we are to establish our intention. Of course, for us, we cannot read the future, but the intention is to complete fasting the entire month.
Okay.
Of course, there is always exception for the rule, and also once this exception is established, the individual is to make up for the days that the individual couldn't fast.
All right.
Let's put an example. An individual became ill and requires to take medication, 3-4 times a day. In that case, the individual is to take care of his health, or her health is the primary goal. Once the person recovers, they can continue fasting the months, and then say if they miss 2 or 3 days, they can make up for these days during the entire year following that Ramadan. For any reason, the individual cannot make up for these days. For example, extremely ill, chronically ill, then we are to substitute this by feeding one person of an average of what cost us to eat for the day, and give it to charity to feed a needy individual.
Oh my!
Yes,
Wow.
of course comes an exception as well. Ladies, mother become basically pregnant. So the rule is to take care of her health and the health of the new coming baby, nursing mother. There are some periods, especially for females, during their monthly period, they are not supposed to fast, but they are required to make up for these missed days, like a day or 2 or 3 and so on. On the contrary, for women during this period, or basically after giving birth to a child, they are not required to make up for missed prayers, but they are required to make up for the missed days of not fasting Ramadan.
Okay. Fascinating, and very important for us to understand in the healthcare environment. A year ago, we had an inpatient who was very adamant about not taking medication while he was inpatient. Would you have any advice for those of us who are not Muslim in terms of how to work with a patient who is concerned about the requirement for fasting, and we're pushing medications and pushing food because we think it's the right thing to do?
Yeah, anything that is nourishing the individual, especially if something goes through the throat, or basically an IV that has glucose and so on, basically the individual should not fast.
Oh, okay.
They should not fast. Maybe it is not common for us to encounter this situation. I mean, either as healthcare giver and also as a patient as well. Is kind of like, well, I want to continue fasting the month. The individual should not harm himself. So if the advice comes from a physician, and the nurse, the staff, that we need to give you the medicine. This will help you to recover faster, and so on. The individual should listen to this advice. And also, if they have any question, I know that the chaplain here offers, basically a service that we can consult with scholars, about this situation. In general, in Islam, an individual should not put himself in a harm way. So should it recommended for me to break my fast for 2 or 3 days? We know that God knows this reason, and we are to follow the recommendation of the caregiver. And again, we know in the back of our head that eventually I have the intention to make up for my missed days.
Yasser, when do children begin to fast?
Everything comes like by training. I'll tell you about my story itself.
Yes, please.
In general, my mother, my parents in general, when introduced us to fasting, and now that Ramadan is coming, and be prepared and excited, and knowing that there is Eid at the end of Ramadan, we're going to get a lot of money, candy, and so on. So my mother will come and tell us, okay, now you are going to eat breakfast, but for the next 2 hours, you will be able to eat, but no drinking. So for us as young, it's like, it's too tough, cannot do that. But we already ate breakfast, so technically we will not feel hungry. And then, slowly, okay, for the next 2 hours, now you can manage for 1 week not to eating. Now you're not going to eat or drink for 2 hours. So again, being a child is like, it's too tough. Eventually end up by knowing that, I can do it. By the end of the first months of this introduction or training, you will find out that maybe you are fasting half of the day, or maybe 4 or 6 hours, and also knowing that at any time you are permitted by your guardian that I cannot do it, so I can break my fast. So this is an introduction. Same, I would say, kind of like learning how to ride a bike. You have to learn, manage yourself, balance yourself. Maybe you're gonna have falls here and there, but then eventually it will become a second nature. And this is actually, as we are young, maybe we think about that basically food and drinking, especially during the long days of the summer, hot days of the summer. You will find out that it is more manageable, and don't think only about the restriction. Think about the rewards that you're gonna get, how strong you are. You're gonna get lean a little bit. You should, kind of,
Yeah.
And along with that, focusing more on the spiritual part as a human being. Where I am now. As we do our annual evaluation. Next year, should I still be here on Earth? What will be my goal? How can I get better? Make the individual conscious about his own behavior toward himself and also towards the community. And the community is not only Muslim, the community is all of us. Whoever practicing whatever, we are one part, and how can I manage myself towards this individual? We are one unit.
Thank you so much for that story. That was really wonderful. So my understanding is that the fasting occurs from sunrise until sunset. Is that true, or am I mistaken?
Correct. We follow the lunar calendar. So once the sunset starts, this is the beginning of the day. So we already have the clock, and we know when the first prayer of the day, the Fajr prayer, will be. For now, it is about 6 o'clock. So we are technically to wake up maybe an hour or a little bit longer earlier than that, in order to pray, read Quran, educate yourself more and more about your practice, and also eat a meal before the break of the Azan, where the Azan starts for the Fajr. And you continue your day. You already physically and mentally prepared yourself that Again, which is the easy part, like, I'm not eating or drinking, but also keep observing yourself. And this is we constantly do. We do it as a human like every day, but this give you like a huge boost. And then come sunset, it is recommended that you try to break your fast, as soon as the sun sets, and this is basically like the beginning of the next day,
Okay.
kind of. And you break your fast, recommended to eat dates. Odd number of dates is what is recommended.
An odd number.
Odd number, yeah.
Okay.
3, 5, or 7. And if dates is not available, sips of water, and then you go to pray, which is about like maybe takes 5-10 minutes or so. And then you eat like a light meal, basically you don't dig in,
Yeah.
kind of, and basically you continue through the months for that practice, and you hope and also think that I want God to accept my fasting, so you try to do your best, during that month.
What are some ways that those of us who are not Muslim can understand, be respectful, and help our colleagues within the hospital during the day while they are fasting during Ramadan?
It's a good question, like during patient care, of course, basically we are not going into the room with our own food to eat, and so on, and also comes people around us, for us, the one who are fasting, we know that others, they are aware of our practice, and they are sensitive about it, and they eat and drink, and basically kind of like in a fashion that we don't observe it, but it happens that I go to our lounge, for example, to do something, and then people are eating there. Some of them like, hey, yes, we know it's Ramadan, we are eating. So I tell them, it's okay, you can eat and enjoy yourself, because also they need to sustain themselves as well, I have some people who will say, oh, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm drinking coffee in front of you. I said, like, don't worry about me, thank you for being aware of this, but also you need to take care of yourself as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. If I am to greet a colleague, what is an appropriate greeting?
Give me a date.
Give you a date? There you go.
Like nothing specific, I remember, and I wrote like a certain greetings that Prophet Muhammad is telling us, basically in telling us that the month is approaching, try to get the best benefit out of it. That during that month there is one night when you reach that night and be able to perfect your practice during that night. It is equivalent as if you have worshipped for an equivalent like almost 1,000 months. So 1,000 months is like 83 plus years, So that night is of a big value. So you try to target it as much as you can, And in general, what is customary now among Muslims, like they say, well, happy Ramadan, Ramadan Mubarak, may God accept your fasting, and so on,
Okay.
Any greeting would be accepted.
Any greeting would be accepted. Are there different ways of observing Ramadan between different communities of Muslims?
I did some search because when I did the question, it's like, oh, never come to my mind, Amazingly is that like essentially, apparently all of us, we practice the same way, Maybe the only difference that I read about is for Shia, they prefer to postpone breaking their fast few additional minutes just to make sure the sun did set totally, So it is something additional that they do, but basically their fasting and our fasting is essentially the same.
Good.
From dawn to dusk.
Good to know.
Same
Thank
practice,
you.
yeah.
And then you mentioned the lunar calendar a few times. Is that the reason why the Ramadan dates move throughout the year?
Yes.
According to the Western calendar.
Yes, yeah, yeah. My father made it easy for us. He said that the lunar calendar is shorter than the Gregorian or the solar calendar by 11 days. So for us, we follow, I mean, in the West, we follow January, February through the end of the year, December, and every month is already set dates. December 31 days, January is the same, February 29 or 28 days, and so on. So lunar calendar being shorter by 11 days, so every year the month will start 11 days earlier. So actually this commemorates myself and my wife, coming here to US like almost 33 plus years ago. We came also during Ramadan.
Did you?
It just happens this way.
Yes.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Okay, Yasser, thank you again so much. Before we sort of wrap up today, is there anything else you think that we here at Children should know about the holy time of Ramadan?
I encourage myself first, and of course, every member in the community where we live is visit the local Islamic center that is closer to you, or if it happens you are in a vicinity of one, just go introduce yourself, and talk to others, learn more from them, appreciate the unity among each member in our community. And also mosques, they provide iftar. So at sunset, and it is available for people, basically they can come, you can bring your own dish as well. It has to be coordinated, of course, with that local society, but also you can spend time, observe, and enjoy the different kind of food that's being offered.
Wonderful. And I'm sure for some of our students and residents who are not in their home environment, that's good advice and they should be seeking that out.
Yes, definitely. For all of us, whenever we have the opportunity, try to be there. Maybe because of COVID, there are some restrictions in the process and also limitation of attendee during these events. But whenever you have the time, even like one day during Ramadan or an evening, spend 30 minutes or so, introduce yourself, talk to the other family member in the society, know what they do, and again, enjoy the food.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing this time with us again. We hope that you are learning something about the wonderful, multi-religious, diverse community that is Children's National Hospital, learning how to be truly respectful of one another, and just gaining in wisdom and insight. Thank you again.